What's up, Amazon sellers? Welcome back to the weekly live show where we drop some interesting e-commerce news, always served up with a side of snark. And of course, we tackle your Amazon questions. I'm Chris Grant, and to my right is my co-host, the Homoya Thermal, Chris Rasick. And for those of you new here, our job is to try to make your life a little bit easier as a seller. Whether you've got questions about flipping things from clearance, pulling the trigger on some OA buys, or getting into wholesale, we will try to help you. We'll answer your questions about Keepa, share some news, maybe a crazy Amazon story or two. Today, we've got a razor for you. If you don't know what that is, you're going to want to stick around. And then, of course, take every single question you can throw at us. Chris, how's your week going so far, man?
So far, so good. Fresh off of a half day off. Except I didn't realize I was going to take a half day off. My brain took the day off. I had other plans, but you ever have those days where it's just like you just can't get it into gear? Your brain's just like, nope, cheap dopamine for me.
Right? Yeah. Every now and again, I pride myself on like not breaking the chain and getting behind the desk. I think more than a lot of folks, but yeah, I don't know. It's like 1 or 2 Saturdays a month, and I'm just like, you know what? Screw this. It's time to Netflix and just watch garbage for like 3 hours. So.
Yep.
And then of course I feel like I just ate a chocolate cake. It's the brain version of an entire chocolate cake.
Yeah. It's great to take some time off, but the guilt involved,
right.
when you're self-employed and like, because I think that's kind of the trap of hustle culture, not to zoom out into more serious territories, but I think that's where the backlash on hustle culture is, because it's, you can constantly be doing something to make money, so I've talked about this. I mean, I think it might have been the first episode of the podcast, however many years now that goes back, but it's I always have trouble figuring out how to give myself permission to call it a day. That can be tough sometimes.
Absolutely, it can be. Yeah, absolutely. But it's usually a good thing. We do need a little rest every now and again. Yeah. And speaking of resting in peace, maybe Netflix murdered Blockbuster, and they did it by bundling thousands of movies kind of all into one simple subscription, and no late fees, no per movie charges, just one low price for everything. And what's cool is that Netflix moment is here for Amazon sellers. It's kind of time to kill the old way of paying for software. Right now, you're probably paying for a shipping software, a sourcing software, a feedback tool, a listing change alert tool, a repricer, and you're paying for them all separately. But you can get access to Tactical Arbitrage, Inventory Lab, Smart Repricer, Feedback Wiz, and more with Seller 365, and you can do it starting at just $69 a month. Blockbuster got left behind. It's a good idea if you don't let your business do the same. And so if you want to try all of these things, you get a 14-day free trial. You can go over to oachallenge.com/seller-365. That's oachallenge.com/seller-365. Or you can check the link down in the video description. It is, tell you what, I'm going to have to get rid of those URLs. I need to probably buy a better URL for that. But it is, I've been testing out a lot of stuff, and things are looking good over there. So
yeah, it's really, I mean, that's the key, is that the extra stuff is where, I mean, this isn't just like a throw in package deal, I mean, these are legitimate tools that people that existed on their own before, that they're all bundling together. So I don't think we're ready to talk about it, but we're exploring and testing some of the bonus features that came along with it that we weren't necessarily intimately familiar with before, and legitimately impressed. so
Yeah.
far. So
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's get into some news. Hey, Corey, Carrie, what's going on? Let's get into some news. And of course, if you guys have questions, make sure that you ask them. We will answer everything, of course. Let's see here. And you know what, Corey, I'm glad you brought up your 2050 listings, because I was actually thinking about you when I was writing some of the content for today. So I don't know it's gonna be good. You're gonna like it. But let's talk about the first piece of news. Amazon kind of shrugged off this economic blackout that was supposed to happen. This economic blackout was supposed to, shake retail giants to their core. And so February 28th was marked as the day that consumers were urged to stop spending altogether. No Starbucks, no letting Target tell you what to buy as you stroll the aisles, no impulse Amazon orders. My buddy Nate even made a TikTok video about it. And so this made its way out there. Like, a lot of people knew that it was coming, and it was meant to send a message, to kind of a stand against corporate greed, a stand against political influence, and just big business as a whole. But instead of Amazon feeling the pressure, they actually saw sales go up by 1% compared to a typical Friday. Despite all the tweets, all the TikToks, the calls to action, the numbers were not what everyone was expecting. So Momentum Commerce, which tracks Amazon sales, found that sales on Amazon US rose 1% during the blackout. By midday, Amazon was actually up 6.8% over a normal Friday. So everyone was supposed to, hey, slow down. And now it's coffee and shopping for breakfast. Now, of course, things slowed down a little bit by the afternoon and evening time, what would normally be peak sales time, but it was a Friday. I expect people were maybe out and about on a Friday night and going to the local Olive Garden or the Chili's for $5 margaritas. But the result was boycott did not make a dent. And John Shea, who's the CEO of Momentum Commerce, says Amazon rakes in north of $1 billion in retail sales every single day, making it naturally resilient to these kinds of things. Given what we've observed, I'm skeptical about any future boycotts and if they'll have a real effect. Now, this boycott was not just for Amazon. SimilarWeb also decided to track online traffic across Walmart, Target, Costco, Home Depot, and Kroger. And they did see a slight 4% dip in overall retail traffic compared to the previous Friday. But SimilarWeb does not track actual sales like Momentum Commerce does. But still, it's not really the financial gut punch I think organizers were hoping for. So was it just a flash in the pan? What's next? Well, the group behind the effort, the People's Union USA, is not calling it quits. Next on their agenda is, sorry, I'm trying to say this with a straight face, and they're making it awful hard. So a full week-long Amazon boycott, from March 7th to March 14th. Because, if one day didn't work, well, 7 days, that's going to do it. They want to do a McDonald's and General Mills boycott as well. And then they want to do a 40-day fast against Target. Not just a regular old boycott, but like a Lent level fast from Target. So the big question is, do boycotts even work anymore? Amazon, it seems almost impossible to boycott. You have to cancel Prime, delete your account, actively avoid all these businesses that rely on Amazon's infrastructure, which is a lot. I think I saw you post, Chris, about how, hey, like 60% of the stuff that's sold on Amazon comes from small businesses. So while you're shaking your fist at the cloud, maybe you need to think about who you're actually hurting when it comes to this. So I don't know. I guess here's what I'm curious, and this is, I don't want to stray into the realm of becoming political or anything like that, but can a boycott actually ever work against a company as big as Amazon, or was this just some sort of performative activism?
Performative activism is where I go. You know what? Without getting in too deep, with this, the younger generations, they want so desperately to have a cause to fight for,
Mhm.
but we keep
The kids
seeing over and
yearn
over
for the
again.
mines, as they say.
Yes, exactly. But the problem is they simply can't get big enough numbers to mobilize.
Mhm.
It was, I think, I read, what was millennial voter turnout? 42%, I think.
Yeah.
So it's, they're pretty loud, but it's pretty much all bark and no bite. What Side question? Why are we mad at General Mills? What did they do? We're mad at
I
cereal now?
You got me. What is that like? That's like Tony the Tiger and stuff, right? Like, come on, they're
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
I don't know what. I don't know why anybody would be mad at cereal.
Yeah, I missed that one on social media. You know what? I think I think the mistake is framing it as a negative. I think it's much easier received, like Small Business Saturday.
Mhm.
That just kind of steadily, that's been happening year after year after year. Uh, Not apples to apples per se, but there's Record Store Day, but it's kind of like in the same spirit. Where you kind of go back to the older medium, and chances are most of the record stores are going to be small businesses, the vast majority of them. But the stores kind of embrace that, the artists embrace that, and they do special editions that are only available on Record Store Day, and Small Business Saturday. I think American Express, I want to say, is one of the sponsors of that.
Mhm.
So I think the mistake is framing it as a negative, like don't shop here. I think if you turn it around and you make it a more well organized small business effort, talk about what you're supporting instead of who you're trying to hurt. I think that's probably the answer if they really want this to have any kind of effect. Um, because it's yeah, you're right. I did post that about, like 62% was the most recent number of Amazon sales that are sold by third parties, so they're actually hurting the businesses, the people that they're saying they're trying to support,
Yep.
and then part of that was, throw in the fact that Amazon, imagine what their cash reserves are, like how long would this have to go on for them to actually be hurt and have to dip into cash reserves when they're prepared for internet outages and stuff like that. I mean, they're prepared for catastrophic, they're prepared for disasters, this blip, small dip in sales isn't going to hurt them. And then 25% of their profits are from AWS.
Mhm.
That's completely invulnerable to the sales traffic on the marketplace. So,
Yep.
that only amplifies any negative impact on us, the third party sellers. So
Mhm.
it seems so poorly thought out and equally poorly executed.
I agree. I do think if you study marketing at all, like your point, yeah, about wanting to be against something compared to wanting to be for something, like people, I think people want to be for something a whole lot more. And we could talk
Hmm.
political slogans, we could talk marketing campaigns, like these forward thinking, positive messages tend to actually perform a whole heck of a lot better than negativity in a lot of cases. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not I'm not against boycotting. Like I do think that I do think it can have its place. I just don't know that. I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't know if that I'm smart enough to be sure. If you like, I understand, like, yeah, maybe we need to go pressure some lawmakers about some things that Amazon does. Absolutely. I'd love to have a little bit more of a voice as a small business owner, to the marketplace that we do business with. But yeah, I'm not sure that me not buying would actually work. And the other thing is, when we have some sort of, let's just say it did work and everyone's like, you know what, we're not buying on Amazon one day. What happens when we get the slingshot effect? Are we going to have the Amazon Prime Day effect where, we get a bunch of front loaded sales, or in this case, front loaded no sales? And then tomorrow everyone's like, oh man, I got to whip out that credit card and make all those purchases I didn't make yesterday because I'm hurting over here. So,
yeah, I mean, offer an alternative, because that's most of the responses that I saw were, it's not really a boycott. People are just going to wait, and they're either going to buy what they need before or buy what they need after, the day after. But there was no alternative provided. Like, hey, don't buy it here. Think about buying it here. Instead it was just like, it was just kind of rage bait. It's like, hey, we're gonna do this, and
which everyone loves rage bait until it's time to actually do something about it.
Yeah. I mean, well, that's what sells. That's, they used to say sex sells back in the 80s and whatnot, but now it's rage. That's the ultimate marketing trigger. And your point on boycotts, I think it's just overdone. Like every week it's something. Somebody's mad at something, and maybe it's the way we're forced to communicate now, where everything is on social media and everything's online in general. But it's, and not to get political, but both sides of the aisle have a reason to boycott some brand or another or something. Go woke, you go broke. And then there's the other side, I mean, it's overdone. It's become too saturated of a move, I think.
Yeah, I would agree with that. All right, let's talk a little more Amazon news. Amazon, you've probably seen that Amazon's rolled out the frequently returned item badges on product pages. Sort of publicly shaming those products, if you will. Well, that data is actually going to be coming to your voice of the customer dashboard. So here's what's happening. And this is in voice of the customer dashboard now. You're going to be able to get a list of your ASINs that already carry the badge of frequently returned. You're going to be able to get a list that is kind of in a warning stage, that's at risk of getting that badge. The return rate data for both the past 3 months and the past year is going to be available to you. And then a suggested return rate benchmark is going to be available to you. Amazon says that, this move with the frequently returned items badges is all about transparency for shoppers, but this could affect you. We don't know to what end yet. I haven't gone and looked at a Keepa graph to see if, maybe that's when the badge turned on. It's possible that this could cause products to sell a bit slower. No one wants to buy a product that Amazon themselves is saying, it's a dud. But Amazon is, of course, giving us a chance to fix the problem before any badges get applied. We can check our voice of the customer dashboard for ASINs that are marked at risk. Here's the problem. What they say is, make sure your product descriptions, images, and size charts are 100% accurate, because misleading listings lead to more returns. And the problem with that is it's really, really freaking hard to make any changes if you're not the brand owner, so I'm not really sure how well that's gonna work. The other thing that they say, Amazon says, is meet Amazon's suggested return rate, although they don't tell you exactly what that return rate is, but they will show you kind of how far off you are. Sorry, Amazon cracks me up sometimes. Now, the good news is that Amazon does remove the badge if your return rate improves over time. So if you do get hit, it's not going to be a life sentence. It's not going to be there forever, but it is something you're going to want to pay attention to. But here's my question. Are buyers even paying attention to this, or is it just another piece of noise on a crowded product page, and they're just looking for that yellow add to cart or buy it now button?
Yeah, I wish we could test it. I wish we had I wish we had a marker of when. Kyle, thank you so much. It's very generous.
Yeah, that is very generous, Kyle. Thank you.
I wish we had some sort of marker on when the badge started, so that we could actually analyze before and after, take a look at the Keep chart to see if there is any impact. This sounds like they're not talking to us. This sounds like they are talking to brand owners. They're talking to PL products, people who not only make the listing, but retain control over it and are able to make changes. This is just like, this is the issue that Amazon has with trying to roll out policy that doesn't necessarily cover all of the different models that you can approach selling on Amazon. This is another one of those where, the arbitrageurs are like, say what?
Right.
We're supposed to do what? So
I do wish they would give us a little bit more or have some sort of process where we could get, approved or whitelisted or whatever it is to make changes or have our changes submitted and actually be taken into consideration. Because honestly, I think I could do a lot of good work on some of the listings that are out there. And if I were allowed and I knew that it was not going to be a complete waste of time, I might actually do it. Like there's some listings that they've got horrible titles. I saw one today, great listing, great selling listing, really bad actual listing. I could have fixed the title, made it much, much better, made it much snappier. The picture, it had a silver cap on top of this product, and you could tell that it was like an eBayer that took the picture, and you could like see the person in the convex reflection of that cap. And I'm just like, daggone, man, like it's not that hard. We could fix this too, and it would probably sell even better. But oh well.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like it's the Wild West as is. I mean, they let anybody, make a listing, and then but then they lock it down for revisions, which I think if they open up revisions, that it's probably even more chaos, and I think the Amazon seller support Twitter account even replied as such on something related to the topic a few weeks ago. So.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know. I wish I would just be satisfied if Amazon figured out a way to talk to their sellers as a whole. It just makes them sound so disconnected.
Yeah.
When they bring language like this that just simply doesn't apply to, certain ways of sourcing your inventory.
Even if it was a round table of 5 or 10 sellers that got together with the folks over at retail once a quarter or whatever, like that would be it would be massive. One, can you imagine how good that would look to the Amazon seller community and what kind of PR win that would be? I think it would be massive. But secondly, I think that they would actually learn a lot.
Right. I totally agree. The problem is when who they decide to put at the round table and the blowback that those people at the table would get from their own networks as they disseminate the information. That's
absolutely.
It's kind of a big ask.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So the last piece today is actually a razor. Now, if you're not sure what a razor is sort of it's a mental model. It's a framework that you can use to make decisions. I decided to go with a razor today because Chris brought up Parkinson's law back on Sunday. I liked it so much. I figured, you know what? Maybe we should do these twice a week because there are so many of these mental models that can be used. And honestly, they're fantastic. One of my favorites, of course, and probably one of the most well known is Occam's razor. But today we're going to talk about Naval's razor, which is a really good one. So we know that arbitrage, yeah, we're flipping products, but that's not all it's about. It really boils down to making the right decisions. If you've never heard of Naval's razor, this could be something that becomes, well, actually, I think it'll become something that's probably not your favorite mental model because of what it forces you to do. But this principle is from the entrepreneur investor Naval Ravikant. He might be, I don't know, he is a modern day philosopher, if there is such a thing anymore. And if you have not heard or listened to or read his How to Get Wealthy tweet storm, it's fantastic, and you should read the book. Naval, not the Diary of Naval,
the Almanac,
of Naval. But this principle from Naval states that when faced with two equal choices, the one that's more difficult, that's the book, the one that's more difficult in the short term usually leads to better long-term results. So if two paths seem equally viable, the one with more short-term pain is probably the one that's worth taking. Now, here's how you can use that in your Amazon business. And we'll start with product sourcing because that's probably where a lot of your mental horsepower goes to. The easy thing is to go to the website or go to Walmart and go directly to the clearance section. Find the items that sell out fast, find the items that are discounted the most, or you could put in the extra work and you could find the places where you might be able to source items more frequently, and maybe they even have a higher chance of you being able to buy those items again and again. Well, which one's going to be harder? The second one, of course, is going to be harder. But which one may build a more sustainable business? Well, again, it's the second one. It's finding those places where maybe you can buy from frequently, and you're not going to get the items that are 80% off all the time, but you're going to find that 20% off coupon. You're going to make a little bit less, but you can buy a whole lot more. All right. It'll also make you far better at sourcing than only looking for the lowest hanging fruit where everyone else is going to be congregating. You could hit, if you're doing retail arbitrage, you could hit the Walmart and the Target that's just down the street, or you could travel to more rural areas and possibly find better deals and shelves that maybe have a little bit more dust on them. It's a short-term inconvenience, yes, but it's probably a long-term advantage. Now, we can talk pricing strategies as well when it comes to Naval's razor. Penny dropping, trying to win the box at all costs, it feels good right now, but setting a pricing strategy that's a little bit more reserved might be able to position you for some longer-term profits. Corey, manual repricing seems like the quick and easy thing to do. You don't have to go out and learn a new piece of software. You don't have to make sure that your strategies are just right. You don't have to get all peoply and talk to support at all. But investing in an automated repricing software should help you maximize profits over time by not only bringing your prices down when they need to, but if you choose the right repricer, putting those prices back up when available, and allow you to free up some time on some higher leverage activities. We can use Naval's razor when we want to talk about growth and scaling. Running everything ourselves, it feels safe. It feels right. We know exactly what to do, and we know exactly who to yell at when something goes wrong. We just have to go look in a mirror. Hiring help can be a pain. You've got to train someone. You've got to trust someone. But if you want to really grow, if you go back and listen to all the people, just about all the people that we've had on the show, hiring is what leads to real business growth and sustainability, so you don't burn out, things like that. And then finally, taking profits from the very beginning, which is of course what everyone wants to do, feels really good. You're putting some money in your pocket, but reinvesting that money for 3 months, 6 months, a year, or as long as you possibly can, well, that's really how you grow this from I'm just flipping a couple of books to this is actually my cash flow machine. And so, Chris, I'm curious: is there any way that maybe I missed where you could apply Naval's razor in your business?
The first one, as far as sourcing goes, you talked about location, clearance aisle versus, the dark, dusty corner. You can also take that and apply it to scanning if you're doing retail arbitrage. We've talked about it multiple times, the advantage of manually typing in the product into whatever scanning app you're using, as opposed to just simply scanning the UPC. That was the first thing that jumped out at me. I find a lot of comfort in having a phrase that sums up concepts like this. It just wraps it up all in a nice little bow, because this is, you can apply this to so many different things that we talked about, and have talked about, on the pod and these shows. We've said multiple times recently, I find myself saying it a lot, the extra mile is never crowded. And that's kind of what this is. That kind of encapsulates that concept as well. You run into a lot of people just, taking it easy and taking it quick and getting it off their desk as fast as possible. When they're kind of chopping the legs out from underneath themselves, by not taking a little bit more time and maybe something that takes a little bit more effort, and tell me this isn't eat that frog, encapsulated too. It's a very similar concept. This is one of those good ones that hurts. It's
Right.
It's not what people want to hear, but unfortunately it's what a lot of people need to hear.
Yeah, that's why I chose this one. I could have brought something that was all candy coated and like, that's nice, but no, I wanted to bring the one that was more difficult. So, all right, let's start answering your guys' questions. See how we can help you guys today. And of course, if you have questions, ask away. We're here to talk about anything we can help you with. Let's see here. Carrie. So, have either of you noticed that when shipments are missing items, you can no longer search them? It now automatically says we've already researched and found that they are missing. I have seen that on some, but I would not say that I've seen it on all of them, but certainly some of them.
It seems to fall in line with the new policy where they proactively reimburse items that are missing. That seems to match up pretty well with the policy change.
Yeah. And there is that new reimbursements dashboard. So you may want to go check over there and kind of make sure that things are looking right, because you got to also remember, even though it says, we've already researched this and you don't need to worry about it. If you don't find a reimbursement somewhere, that doesn't mean you could never open a case. You could absolutely open a case on it. Let's see here. Very super cool guy. What if I just built a large list of historically arbitrageable products along with source links, even if not profitable right now, then just check the list periodically to see if any are worth selling? Sort of a play on things that we talk about checking old leads, in my opinion. Yeah, it works. if you work the system, you know.
Mhm.
And here's the issue, because I'm going to be honest, I come across this myself, even though we're big proponents of doing this kind of thing. Is I'll go in and I'll see, well, damn, there's 6,000 leads in this particular list, and it's straightforward. I can just start at the top and just go through each and every one, and I can tell, within 10 seconds or so, hey, I can get this for $14.99, but the price on it is now dropped to $20 on Amazon. I need to move on to the next one. But just seeing that 6,000, I'm like, oh man, maybe I should go check my email instead. So yes, is this a good idea? Absolutely. But you're going to have to work the system.
Yeah. And it only becomes a better idea the bigger that list grows, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think in my database, I don't know, 12,000, 14,000 leads or something like that. And I was even thinking this independently of this question, so I'm glad you brought it up. Very super cool guy. Um, I I cannot express how much I love site-wide and category-wide coupon codes.
Yes.
Like, once you build up any kind of sizable database and one of those codes hits, I mean, Chris, I kid you not, my last, all right, 90% of my last, I'd say 750 units that went to a prep center have come from a search on a code through my database, through existing things. I haven't gone into, the actual internet, into the stores themselves, only through links in existing information that I have.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it makes it so much easier, when these things hit. So yeah, I mean, you get some sort of code, or a store that you can get any kind of decent volume from, puts an entire category on sale. I mean, you could be good for a couple days and get as
Yeah.
many units as your operation allows.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I'll tell you, I found a code today, which I ended up not using. I was not 100% sure of the ethics of it. And I also figured that it would probably get nuked pretty quickly. But I happened to find an employee code for 50% off of a particular website, and wasn't super hard to find. It was pretty easy to find with a Google search. And I wasn't looking for it. I was just looking for coupon codes. And man, was I awful tempted, because I did a search in my database and there were like 50 leads. And I'm like, at 50% off, this would be some easy pickings. But
Hmm. That's a tough one. You might be a better man than me.
of you, I saw a post that Amazon has created a new go-between for third-party software companies and prep centers. Did you see that? Is it true? I don't have any specifics. I can't find the post. I do remember reading something about this. Now, it's not like a go-between. It's the fact that anybody who offers third-party services to sellers, or may have access to, or so I know exactly what it is now. Anyone who is a service that has access to multiple seller accounts basically needs to like put themselves on a list. I didn't read much else past it. I think I saved that into a folder for me to go and check again later this week. But one, it doesn't surprise me, number one. And two, this actually may be a good thing. So then let me explain. Why doesn't this surprise me? Well, Amazon wants to make sure that people are doing the right thing. They're selling legitimate products. And isn't it a little suspicious if one entity has access to 50, 100, 250 different seller accounts when they're not some sort of SaaS or software tool? Yes, absolutely. Does Amazon know what third-party prep centers are? Probably. But did they know what it was 3 years ago? No. I guarantee they did not. You got to remember, Amazon's very slow on the uptake because they don't have boots on the ground, you know? So that's why it doesn't surprise me. Why is this a good thing? Well, it's conjecture, but people have said, well, we think people have gotten suspended because they all used this prep center. So if now all the prep centers are on a list, then Amazon can be like, oh, well, we don't need to, like, these 10 accounts are not related. They just happen to use the same prep center. So if account number 1 does get suspended, we don't need to go in and actually suspend these other 9 accounts. And so if that actually ever did happen, this could be a way to say, okay, we have a little bit more data, we can make better decisions, that kind of thing. Now, the problem is our prep center is going to do this because not every prep center is like a professional prep center. Like, I'm not knocking the people who run them out of their garages or anything like that. You can throw up a shingle and you can be in business. And if you do good work, I don't care if you work out of your tool shed or if you work out of a 15,000 square foot warehouse. Doesn't matter to me. However, a lot of prep centers come and go. And, are they really just starting a prep center because they know how to prep real well and they think they can make a buck? Or are they really going to make a go of this and make sure that all their I's are dotted and their T's are crossed? I don't know. So we'll see how this goes.
Sounds like a move in the fight against automation too, right?
Could be. Absolutely.
If it's, we've heard there's stories that, like price fixing and whatnot. You can't talk to other sellers and kind of organize pricing strategies together, right? So if that's the case, I mean, you could easily see, one of these software companies having, with access to multiple accounts, you could see them, wouldn't take much for them to start doing things that Amazon is against, along those lines.
Absolutely. David, when sourcing OA, I've heard people say to avoid clearance because too many people go straight there. Does this apply to all sites? No, not necessarily. I would say that for sure it applies to Target and Kohl's and Walmart, and it applies to those, those top 10 sites. I probably wouldn't go hang out in the clearance section unless I had a way to make my moat deeper than all my competition. I don't know. Somebody buys me or if I could find a 10 or a 15% off gift card to Walmart, would I go to clearance? Yeah, I might go to clearance. I've got a extra 10 or 15% to play with. Now, would I go to a clearance on a website that is something I know people aren't going to? I'm actually thinking of one right off the top of my head. I'm not going to give it away though. But I would go to their clearance every single time I go there, have gone to their clearance, have purchased things. Prices don't tank because nobody goes and shops this place. It's just one of those places that we've found on the second page of Google. So no, it doesn't apply to all sites.
Yeah, and David, this is essentially what makes Naval's razor so effective. This is kind of exists within the analysis of Naval's razor that we were talking about before. The reason to avoid clearance is, you need to expand beyond clearance. The spirit of that advice is don't rely on clearance. Don't think that you're going to make a business. And if you zoom out, the concept itself is not only clearance aisles, but it's Nike socks. It's in tactical arbitrage, the top 10 sites. Yeah, I forgot the stat. I think I asked you last week even, and I forgot it already. But
82%.
Yeah, okay. 82% of the products that profitable products are from the top. Is it 10?
Yeah,
Top 10 stores?
82% of all searches done inside of tactical arbitrage are done on the top 10 websites.
All right, thank you. Okay, so you think about all the volume. Think about 5 figures worth of, I guess, maybe the tactical arbitrage users. 82% of they don't count them anymore, but the scan minutes are in the Targets, the Walmarts, the Walgreens. It's concentrated in the truly low hanging fruit, right? So obviously those products and the products from those stores are going to become saturated. It's the same concept with clearance. Everybody thinks to go to clearance because that's a very easy connection to make. That's one of the first dots that you connect when you start in this business, because think of the concept: buy low, sell high. It's Amazon Marketplace doesn't know that Walmart put this on clearance, so there's a little bit of time, there's profit, there's margin, that you can get in and out and get some profit. You don't have to stay completely away. I mean, I still check clearance at Walmart. If I find something, but I understand that I need to get in and out quickly, but there's nothing wrong with taking something that is easily found, the lowest of the hanging fruit, buying 5 or 10, make your 10-15% ROI, and just keep the juices flowing, keep the motors running.
Yep. Hey, Kyle, I just want to take another moment and thank you for this. This is very, very kind. We'll get Chris some Diet Code Red or some Mountain Dew Code Red Zero with this. Is that what you're drinking today?
Absolutely. Yeah. There's another cheer competition in Columbus. So I didn't go, but my wife and my daughters, I unleashed them on Kroger without me and outsourced my Code Red accumulation.
That's beautiful. David, if a product is sold on Sally Beauty's site, is that an instant no-go since Sally Beauty IPs? They sell more than just their own brand, I believe. So it wouldn't be an instant no-go. But I tend to stay away from their in-house brands. Yes.
Yeah, they protect their own brands, and they generally don't like resellers. But you find something on sale that's not a Sally brand, I wouldn't hesitate to pick that up if I could get the order fulfilled.
Yeah, that's the other problem. David, I just had a listing I was selling on become inactive. I contacted seller support and they said they'd get back to me. Any thoughts? Unfortunately, there's too many reasons why something might go inactive. Is it a pricing error? Is it a high pricing error? Is it a low pricing error? Is it in FC transfer and now it's inactive because you don't technically have any stock available? Is there some sort of complaint that hasn't showed up yet? There's too many things. So I would only be taking a shot in the dark. Christian, have you guys started working on your manage your sourcing cost? The answer is no, have not. How's that going? Planning on starting on it next week. So they did. I'm glad you brought this question up because they did push back the start of when that goes into effect from the middle of March to the end of March. So everyone does have a little bit more time. But I have been debating in my own mind whether or not it's worth the extra time and effort. Because let's just say, all right, let's just say that here's the process. The process currently is if I go and I buy something to sell on Amazon, I have done the research, I pull the trigger on buying, and then after buying, it basically gets recorded in duplicate. It gets recorded on our personal sourcing sheet, and then it gets recorded on our prep center's sheet as well. So you could count triplicate because they also then put it into inventory lab, but at the very beginning, it's in duplicate. Now, I could go the next step and put the ASIN into my inventory, wait for it to populate, and then go in and add in all the data to maybe get paid a little bit more. And I'm gonna, whenever you do this, if they say it's worth $10 but you paid 15, they're gonna require you to upload documentation. And then you've got to figure, well, how much of that inventory is going to get damaged or lost that I've done this work for, that I'm now going to get reimbursed the higher amount. So is it going to net an extra $1,000 a month? Is it going to net an extra, $20 a month? Because depending on which side of that it is, will determine whether or not it's actually worth my time. If it's $20 a month extra that I'm going to make, it's not worth my time. If it's $1,000 extra per month, then maybe I need to think about outsourcing that and training someone to do it for me. But then the other part of that, and this is the thing I'm not 100% sure of, is if I don't put in the information and they do reimburse me, can I open up a ticket and say, hey, here's the evidence of what I actually paid. I need you guys to reimburse me the difference. That part I'm not 100% sure about. Because if I can do that, then I'll just do that. Why front load the work for the 3% of the inventory that I'm going to end up getting reimbursed for, when I can just wait and just hunt down the data when I need it? So
yeah, I mean, unless you're really deep on products, I mean the value only hits, after above a certain level, which is going to be based on your individual stores. But yeah, this is kind of like preparing for a needle in a haystack in another haystack. It's because it's only going to come into play if they lose that inventory.
Yep.
There's a very high chance that most of the work that you would do, if you decided to take a comprehensive look and shore everything up, it's a very small percentage that work's going to be compensated at all.
Mm-hmm. Or maybe make yourself a rule that, hey, you know what? I'm going to do this work only for things that cost me over X amount of dollars. So if we spend more than $50 on a unit, and I know that it's looking like on average that Amazon's numbers are 40% less than what my actual sourcing cost is, then on everything over $50, I'm going to put that information in so I don't have to deal with it later. That would even make more sense to me. So, and then of course, if you're doing wholesale, you're doing private label, then of course it totally changes, Ad, hey guys, what advice would you give a person who is selling on Amazon but doesn't have complete control of his numbers? I'm guessing you mean your bookkeeping is not where you want it to be. My advice would be figure out a solution to that sooner rather than later. Because if you don't, even if it's just inventory lab, like inventory lab is going to be better than not having anything, because then you're going to at least know if you've got your sourcing costs in there, you're going to be able to like, oh, okay, well, I've sold this much, I've made this much, here's what my profit number is, here's how much inventory I've got in stock, sales value wise. You can at least get a snapshot of where you are. But you've got to get something, you need to at least know directionally. Now, of course, any bookkeeper, CPA, if Chris Potter happens to stumble upon this, he's going to be clutching his pearls, but you at least need to know, hey, is this worth me continuing? Because if you're just, throwing money at something and you're not seeing any kind of return, or you're having trouble paying credit cards and you don't know where the leaking is coming from, it's hard to plug a ship when you don't know where the hole is.
Ooh, that's a good one. I was going with if you want to sit in the shade of a tree, the best time to plant one was 100 years ago. Second best time is today. So I would say get started now. Like get the grasp that you want to have on your numbers, on what you have going on right now, and make that a habit moving forward. And then I would kind of take it chunks at a time, kind of, retroactively kind of go back and document what you need to document. The granular outlook that you're looking for, start retroactively building that little by little now. But regardless, start now. Start logging what you need to log every time.
Yep. Relaxation sleeping sound. I got hit with an IP complaint. I provided invoices to Amazon, invoices that worked before with the same brand, but now they want a supply chain invoice from the distributor or a letter of authorization. I asked my distributor, they sounded confused. How do I explain to them what I need from them? You can explain a letter of authorization, but you're not going to get a supply chain invoice. Let's say that I'm your supplier, okay? And you come to me and you say, "Hey, Chris, I bought these cups from you, and Amazon wants to know, that they're legit. Can I get a letter of authorization, or may I have your invoice from your supplier?" I might try to get you a letter of authorization, a letter from my supplier that says, "Yeah, you can sell them." But if I give you my invoice, well, why wouldn't you just call the number on my invoice and then go do business with them and cut me out? So that's likely not going to happen. But I would also go back and read more about that IP complaint, because are they actually asking for a letter of authorization, or is it just one of the check boxes that you can choose? Because I am currently dealing with 2 IP complaints at the moment, and they each offer me, "Hey, you can send us a letter of authorization." Or, okay, it's not always and, sometimes it is an or situation. So make sure that you're reading that correctly, because it can get a little confusing, and it may make you feel like, "Oh, I've got to tick all of these boxes," when in reality you just have to tick one of them.
Now, I've never had a lawyer actually handle an IP complaint for me. Is this something that they would be good at? Somebody like a Seller Basics, can they go back in and say, "All right, look, this situation, we've gotten to the point where you guys are asking for a letter of authorization and supply chain. This was done through arbitrage. Let's take a few steps back. What was it about the invoice that you didn't like?" and kind of work on it that way. Is that possible?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Seller Basics could handle something like that. And here's another thing. You could go over to LinkedIn and you could start finding people who work at Amazon, and you could start messaging them, and find out, "Hey, who do I actually need to talk to?" I will not give out the email that I picked up today. This happened it was given to me by a friend, but I'm not going to give out the email and then have it not work again, because they decide to change their email address after getting bombarded. But you can often find an email address of someone at Amazon who worked in a particular department, or you can reach out to them on LinkedIn, and you can say, "Hey, I'm having this trouble and I'm just hitting a dead end." And you can kind of go up the chain that way sometimes, and get it figured out. I am about to email the person I got the email of today to be like, "Hey, listen, you guys accepted this once, and these are, I mean, this is obvious, like it's plain as day that these are from a legitimate supplier. What's going on here? What else do you want from me, or what do you need? Be happy to get it for you." So we'll see how that goes. Kyle, can you still source from tactical arbitrage today? Yes. I I don't know how much more to say to that, but yeah, absolutely. You can
Yeah.
product search works, reverse search works. And ask Chris. Chris does reverse searches more than I do.
Yeah, the only time the answer is no to that question, Kyle, is if you ask it at 11:59 at night. You know, and in that case, no, you have to wait till tomorrow. But yeah, it's Kyle. I don't know. Somebody else asked a question in one of the Facebook groups. It might have been the tactical arbitrage group. And so I mulled it over, and I mean, the answer is yes, but I mulled over how I wanted to express the positive. And I estimated I get about 50 to 100 profitable products every single month, probably on average. That's where I landed after I thought about it for a while. And I don't know if I'm underselling it even. It might be higher, but yeah, but at least 50 to 100 profitable, like double checked, like buyable. This is positive cash flow leads every single month.
So let's do some quick math on that. Okay. Let's say you just average 100 profitable products every single month, and you buy 6 units for each one. And let's just say that your average profit per unit is $4.40. Now, why did I choose $4.40? Because you're probably going to go after the stuff that has a higher initial profit number. But at the end of the day, there's going to be price erosion. There's going to be one or two that, maybe actually tanks in price and you sell it for a loss. So we're talking average profit per unit. Well, 600 units in a single month times $4.40 is $2,640 in profit. That's a mortgage payment from a $69 a month piece of software and your time.
And that's making your money back on the tool in what, day 1, day 2. So yeah, I've said it before. I don't know why this is coming up. Sorry, Chris. I mean, I guess it's good. I imagine it's Seller 365, so people are kind of taking a fresh look at tactical arbitrage. But and I've said this before. I never considered getting rid of it, and I was angry at things that changed, and limitations that were put in place. I got very, very nervous because I had systems in place. I had paid VAs that were dependent on my ability to leverage tactical arbitrage. So I was worried that I would have to retrain it, and retraining VAs is a significant time commitment away from the parts of my business that make me money and keep them paid, right? Obviously. So yeah, but I never, like, through I adapted, and I had to, through the worst of it, I had to run, a few or less scans than I was used to. But at no point in time did I think I was ever going to get rid of it, simply because it pays for itself so quickly and so easily, even at its most limited. I think a lot of people, a lot of the negative comments on TA are emotional responses, and people just kind of being angry. It doesn't actually have to do with the utility of the tool itself.
Absolutely. Tanner, have you heard of anyone getting a Section 3 for every brand they've ever sold? I don't know that I've seen it for every single brand that they've ever sold, unless they haven't sold a lot of stuff. Doesn't sound likely, in my opinion.
Have you heard of anybody getting more than 3 or 4 ASINs at a time?
Yes, I've seen a handful where it's 10 or 20 or even 30, but it's no more than a handful.
Have you seen anybody get a second Section 3?
Yes. He's not here tonight, but Luke got them back to back.
Oh, really?
Yeah, if I recall correctly.
Huh.
Carrie, when Amazon offers a discount to the customer, I know we get reimbursed. Is that something we were automatically enrolled in? Is there a report to check on the money coming back? Have you ever checked? Yes, I have checked. You can check your reimbursements report. I would imagine that those are going to be in your reimbursements portal now as well. I don't know for sure. I'll need to check. But yeah, I have checked. I don't check all the time, but you should automatically get that money back. Yes. Hey, Kale, what's going on? Shane, I'm glad you brought this question up because I actually answered this question in a group chat earlier today. Could you recommend a book on the mental aspect of business? Have days where I rip and then a slowdown happens and I get in my own head. It's not any particular. So my suggestion is not any particular book, but I would highly suggest that you read some Stoic philosophy. Pick up just about anything of Ryan Holiday's. It's not going to be, Meditations by Marcus Aurelius or anything like that. It's going to be, I think, what some would probably call pop Stoicism. But I think that he takes the tenets of Stoicism and wraps them up nicely with more modern stories and things like that. And I know this sounds crazy. Like, why would you tell me about some like 2,000-year-old philosophical, thought process? But I think that at its core, Stoicism helps us learn to manage emotions in our business and helps us become emotionally resilient without becoming cold or detached. Despite my kids and family calling me a robot. Okay, I am not cold or detached. I don't get angry. I don't fly off the handle. I'm pretty calm. It helps us become more mindful, channel our emotions appropriately, channel them productively, and not just, not just our emotion, but also our ego, and all kinds of things. So, and at the same time, I've actually found that I actually think that Stoicism has made me more empathetic than I was prone to be on my own. So you hear a lot of people say, "Oh, well, Stoicism. You don't, Stoics don't feel. They don't, have emotion. Anything." So far from the truth. It's not funny. It's just channeling those emotions appropriately. So, The Obstacle is the Way. Great book. Ego is the Enemy is a great book. Discipline is Destiny. Another one. Those are all Ryan Holiday books. Any of those would be a good start, in my opinion. Chris, what about you?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Like those books right here, those are all Ryan Holiday books. And then I got a couple over here. Got the Daily Stoic over here. That's great advice. Shane, if you want more specific, like to business, I don't know how if you. I feel like recommending Atomic Habits at this point is, just eye-rollingly redundant. But if you haven't read Atomic Habits, well, here's where I'm going with this. It sounds like you would benefit greatly from all the books that focus on the process, and just kind of doing the work, whether you feel like it or not, and the importance of that, kind of achieving the long term by focusing on the short term. So, and that's what Atomic Habits is going to teach you. That it's more about the process and the habits that you build of doing it, and then you're going to achieve the success you're looking for almost without realizing it, just by enjoying the individual steps and whatnot. Another great one that I am due to reread actually is The Motivation Myth by Jeff Hayden. He's an author. He's a regular contributor to Inc. magazine, the business magazine. He wrote The Motivation Myth. I read that at a probably the perfect time. So he talks about kind of setting a goal, and he talks about building momentum. He said motivation, it's not actually, you don't wait for it, you don't find it. Motivation is actually from what you just accomplished, and it's the sense of the accomplishment, the good feeling from that propels you forward. So it kind of moves motivation from often the horizon to the present, to the right now. And I thought that was really, really good. It's what I needed to hear at the time that I read it. That was great. More recently, and it's been a few years since I read both of those books. More recently, along the same lines, Organize Tomorrow Today by Dr. Jason Selk. And I forget the co-author's name. I forget all co-authors. I can only remember one author. That's just how I'm wired, apparently. That was good too. That was about kind of setting yourself up in advance, and I'm fascinated by the concept of future self. The one I can't remember who said it, but there was a great quote where the best thing you can do is make your best friends your past self and your future self. And it sounded confusing at first, but it's basically like, if you're good to your future self now, when future self becomes present self, you're going to be in much better position to succeed. And then once you are present self, your past self was more productive. So your past self is appreciative of your present self because you're more productive now. And that didn't sound like it made sense as I said it out loud, but
No, that made sense.
all right.
Yeah, I remember when you first told me that, I was like, "That's really good." It's a,
Yeah.
I think people need to mull that one over because it's a lot deeper than it sounds on its surface, and probably a lot. Yeah. All right, Carrie. Do you have a way of keeping track of all the gift cards and refunds? Is that a spreadsheet or a VA? No, I don't have a great way, although I am thinking of building something. Not an app or anything like that. Now, there are apps out there. There are gift card tracking apps that you can actually download and use. But typically, I only try to buy discounted gift cards 90% of the time right before I'm going to use them. We do have a rule where 10% of the time we can bank some from some particular sources when they're, when the gift cards are on sale, essentially. But most of the time it's just trying to use them up immediately. And if there is a refund, I just try to go back in, usually using GCX and putting the number back in there because you can track it right inside of GCX. But I wish I had some magic bullet and I don't.
Yeah, I'm leaving money on the table because I don't have a good system for that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are times where I know I just, a couple of days ago, I look at a gift card and it was at 14%, but now I'm ready to buy from that particular store and it's only 9%, and I left 5% on the table because I didn't act. So that's frustrating.
Yeah. Do you guys have any tips or wisdoms with regard to quitting your 9-to-5 jobs and doing Amazon full time? This is a tough one for me to answer, and it's a question I get quite frequently, but it really needs to be so personalized for it to be useful advice, in my opinion. The best way that I think the best general advice that I can give is, if you have any sort of responsibilities, because, be honest, if I were telling 18-year-old Chris or 39-year-old Chris, this would be massively different advice. 18-year-old Chris, I'd be like, listen, you idiot. Don't ever work a real job, or get some money, by working some jobs, and work for yourself, and don't ever do anything else. But at 39-year-old Chris, I'd be like, hey, listen, you need to make sure that you've got 6 to 9 months of runway to to like make this work. And really in today's Amazon climate, I would really say 12 to 18 months would be even better, to give yourself some time, because the turnaround period on your cash on cash cycle is longer than it once was. So 12 to 18 months of runway would really make me a whole heck of a lot more comfortable if you have responsibilities. If you need to keep a roof over, your family's head, you need to keep food on the table, that kind of thing. Then the longer the runway, the better. I think that's as personalized as I can get without like knowing your exact situation.
Yeah, and Oxjam, I think you need to have a real serious talk with yourself regarding your own self-discipline, because there's a very, very stark contrast between doing it part-time and, a little side gig, side hustle, whatever you want to call it, with a daytime job. It's tough for people to realize how big of a safety net a full-time gig is when you're doing Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
And this answer is different for different people. Like there's, I think like there was a guy way back when I was working at the car lot, the top producer. This is, God, I don't know, it was like 15, 20 years ago now. So he was making about $100,000 a year as a car salesman. And a small, like not a big lot, like we had to kind of drum up our own traffic. There wasn't a lot coming in off the street. So it was an impressive number, adjust that for whatever you need to modern day. But he was the type of person that he kept buying stuff. He rolled negative equity because he kept showing up with big flashy, pickup trucks with, big tires and stuff, the classic compensation stereotype. But he kept buying stuff, and we'd give him crap for it, but he was convinced, and he would adamantly say, I need to have this payment. I need to keep buying this stuff because that's what motivates me to keep making the money. And that's how he was wired. And there are certain people like that. They need to have a big nut because that's going to propel them to make the money to cover it. And then there are people like me, the B type personalities, who are more analytical and cautious and financially responsible, even, who need, it's going to be scary once that safety net's taken away, and well, Chris, it'll put it this way. I've said it so many times, like if you're able to start this part-time with a full-time gig, it's a huge, huge advantage, right? Simply because of that safety net. You can make mistakes with minimal impact, and really bad things can happen to your Amazon business that you can now survive because you're not relying on that money to pay the bills and keep the lights on and whatnot. So, Chris, what think back of the people that we've interviewed, or maybe just what you think, what's the top end in sales that someone doing this part-time can hit? What would you say?
I mean, I know of people who've been part-time and do 3 to 5 million a year in sales.
Yeah.
Right.
So take that. So Oxjam, take that into perspective, and maybe that's top end. Maybe you take the high and the low off, cut that off. Say you can get to $1 million part-time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where you are right now, but if you're not, say if you're in the range of doing $10,000 to $20,000 months, and you can tolerate your day job long enough, challenge yourself to get it part-time up to $1 million, and then the discipline part, what I talked about is being honest with yourself about your self-discipline. Is once you cut ties to your day job, make sure that you are going to use the hours that you've now freed up to amplify the business even further. Don't don't just take that and be like, whoo, video games, and then keep doing, the concentrated effort. Take advantage of the time to increase your revenue even more.
Yeah. And to people who think, oh, well, I would never do that. I would never quit my job and then not put in the work. Yep. I it's not a prideful thing, but I have been somewhat of I would say a workaholic ever since I was 15. Like I've just, when I was 18, I was putting in 12-hour days and working I work. But when I went out on my own, I had no boss, like nothing like that. I would not sit down to the computer until noon, and I would stay up until 3 in the morning, watching a movie or whatever it is, and be like, this is the life that I've now chosen. But that turns into, well, I'm not going to start working until noon, and I'm going to cut out of here at 4:30 and keep banker's hours, and can't grow a business that way. Oxjam, does Tactical Arbitrage support Amazon Australia? They do not at this moment. Not a lot of things support Amazon Australia for one reason or another.
All the
Isabella,
big scary animals in Australia,
right? Isabella, customer contacted me after 2 months saying she never received her order. I checked the tracking and it shows the tracking number got created, but after that, no other information where the package could possibly be. One scenario is that I created a shipping label but never shipped it, or after dropping it off at USPS, it got lost somewhere. Amazon said I should contact USPS to track the package. I don't think that's right. Any advice on what to do? If you purchased shipping through Amazon, you're not the shipper of record. Amazon is the shipper of record. So the customer would need to file what's known as an A to Z claim, and then you'll have to give Amazon all the information. If you purchase the shipping label outside of Amazon, sure, you could reach out to the USPS and try to find out where it is. Every now and again, that can shake something loose for whatever reason, and maybe it got stuck in a conveyor belt somewhere, and they go up and they kick it down or whatever. That's about all. That's really all you can do. I don't know how much this item was, but at this point, personally, I'm probably refunding the customer and just taking the loss on the thing. Oh, Tanner, sorry about that, man. 6 million annual sales and got a Section 3 for 55 brands. That's rough. Well, I'll tell you what, Section 3s, if it's just, hey, let's prove your supply chain, like this is going to be a ton of paperwork, but it should be pretty straightforward. That's the silver lining. But that's a lot of paperwork, man. I'm sorry.
The bright side, Tanner, is you're in good hands with Seller Basics.
Yeah, they should
talking
to
them.
Right.
Yeah, it was awesome talking to them.
Yeah. Carrie beat 2 Section 3s.
Good deal.
Yeah. And Corey, I don't think they've stopped. I think people have just stopped talking about it. That's typically what happens. Oh, Kyle, this is incredibly polite. You gotta, I appreciate it, but you gotta stop. I appreciate you saying these things. We do this, honestly, we do this selfishly. It's fun for us, and we get to answer questions and think about things a little bit differently, and we just have a good time. But I'm glad that this has been helpful. That means a ton, and I appreciate it. $3 to $5 million part-time. Well, I'd be real interested to know how many hours they put in, profit margin, return on sales, and what business model. I was talking either OA or RA. So here's something crazy. I actually think that you could get to 3 to 5 million in annual sales on Amazon as a part-time seller, meaning you've got a regular full-time job, easier with retail arbitrage than you could with online arbitrage. All right. And I know that sounds nuts. Okay. But here's the thing. Both retail arbitrage and online arbitrage, they're simple business models. All right. So, and I've been having this go through my mind because I have something I'm thinking of doing here. But if you can master retail arbitrage, which is going into stores, scanning products, typing in product names, knowing the stores you want to go to, maybe learning their sales cycles a little bit or keeping your finger on the pulse, and you get it really down pat and you say, okay, well, this is what I'm buying. It's got to be $5 in profit. It's got to be 30% ROI. It can't have more than X number of variations. And then you're like, okay, but I can break one of these rules. All right. Well, now you've got an SOP and you can pass that SOP on to somebody. And in my opinion, it's actually a lot easier to hire someone locally because you can take them out in person and teach them in person. They're going to speak English and as a first language, typically. I've taught several people to do retail arbitrage, and it was easier than teaching a VA to do online arbitrage. Plus, there are tools where you can actually watch people from your computer while they're scanning in real time. Okay. And so you could use the new RevSeller mobile app. Betcha we even forgot to talk about that. But you could use the RevSeller mobile app, look at the history that the other person is scanning, and be like, oh, you know what? I really don't like this one, and shoot them a quick text message until they get it down pat and you just trust them. And then the cool thing is if they source for you and they can prep for you, your turnover on that inventory could be a lot faster. And there's a lot of people who want some side income and who might go and drive Uber Eats that you could hire to do retail arbitrage for you instead, 10, 15 hours a week. There are a lot of moms and homemakers who their kids have gotten a little bit older and maybe they want something to do, but they want that flexibility to be there when kids get home. And I say, you know what, maybe I don't mean to be sexist. Maybe there's a stay-at-home dad who wants the same kind of thing, but there are people who will go out and shop for you. And I think they're pretty easy to find. If you're part of a church, if you're part of a civic organization, if you're part of a PTA, come on. They have those PTA meetings at like 3:00 in the afternoon. I rarely go to any of them, but I do go on occasion. I treat the PTA like the HOA, and I will go to them on occasion. Well, all those people who are there at 3:00 in the afternoon are very likely to be people who could go do retail arbitrage for you. And so I actually think you could build a 3 to 5 million RA easier than you could OA.
Yeah, that's a good point. And honestly, you could probably find a shopper pretty easily, even if you just had a few hundred Facebook friends. Just throw something on there and just kind of explain it and explain it a little bit, and you'd have the ability for them to just DM you. So there's some confidentiality if anybody is hesitant to admit they're looking for some side income. Yeah.
Yep.
That's a good point.
Yeah. Hike. How do you ensure that the reviews belong to the same Amazon marketplace? So sometimes if you're looking at reviews on Amazon, they will be from all different marketplaces. Well, there's not like a perfect way, especially when you're looking through Keepa product finder or the variations in Keepa. And that's why I really like to marry it with, well, what does the sales rank look like? And there's usually a correlation there, unless you want to go through and read all of the reviews. Sometimes they'll tell you what marketplace they're from, that kind of stuff. But then I think you're starting to really overdo it. You know, we need to be directionally right with all of our data. So I'm not done forming this thought yet, but I was thinking about Amazon the other day, and I was talking with somebody, and they were really trying to talk themselves out of buying a product. And I said, let's go the other direction and let me try to talk you into it. Like, it wasn't like this crazy great winner or anything like that, but I was like, you could buy 3 of these and you could do pretty well. So why say no to it just because it's not something you would buy 10 of? And then we started talking about how, well, we need to be directionally correct. And then, what's the worst case scenario? And so I started thinking about Amazon products as buying a bunch of lottery tickets. And I asked Perplexity to do the math for me. If I were to go out and let's say that I could start playing a new lottery where each lottery ticket, cost me $1. And the potential profit on each lottery ticket was $3. But out of every 100 lottery tickets, 2 or 3 of them were going to get returned to me, and I'd be at a negative $1. Okay. I asked ChatGPT, or I asked Perplexity, how many tickets would have to be winners for me to actually make a profit? You want to know what the number was?
What was it?
It was 27%. 27% would have to be winners. Now, does that work out when it comes to Amazon products? No, not exactly, because something's going to be $2 profit, something's going to be $5 profit. There's going to be, it's not like perfect math, but you have to win less than you think to come out on top. So while I talk about protecting our downside on products and, hedging your bets and all of that stuff, yes. Do I think that's important? But do I think we want to make sure that we're always trying to talk ourselves out of every single product? No. Sometimes we do need to find, hey, what are the positives here? And could I buy 3? Is it still an asymmetric bet? I think we need to think about it more like that, instead of saying, I've got to talk myself out of every single product. And I wonder, when people come on here and say, I can't find anything profitable, how many times have they talked themselves out of things that are actually profitable, but they could only buy 3 of, or it didn't make $7 and it was possible that they might break even if it goes down to the price that it was 137 days ago.
Yeah. You could draw a parallel with what I think David was talking about when he was asking about the clearance aisle. It's like if you have $100 to spend in the clearance aisle and you can buy 12 of one thing or 3 of 4 different products, the chances are that even if it starts tanking, as all of that, every clearance aisle of every Walmart across America makes its way to Amazon, you can still make money as the ROI is going from, say, 40% down to 10. You'll probably sell one at 32% ROI and then another one at 25, and then you'll catch your last one at 12%. That's going to average out to somewhere in the mid 20s, I would guess. But then you're out of it. And if you do that with all 4, that's 2, you're in the same aisle, but you took 2 different strategies, and the numbers are going to be pretty different, to where if you bought all 12, you may sell those first 3 at those positive ROIs, but then the last 9, you're now at 0 and then going negative as you're trying to clear out the rest.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to actually, you'd be at a loss if you bought all 12 of the one thing versus the 4 different ASINs and just 3 units.
Yep. I know we're going a little long on this one, but let me read this to you because this makes more sense the way I typed it up. So I asked Perplexity, if I sell products that cost $10 and I make a $3 profit and I have a 2% return rate, where when I get a return, I lose $2. Okay. But on some of the sales, I have to cut the price to where I lose $1 per sale. What is the percentage of sales that have to be at the $3 profit for me to make a profit after 100 sales? And so it started going in and figuring some stuff out for me. And again, I think this is directionally correct. I don't know if the numbers actually work out to be exactly right. But to make a profit after 100 sales, approximately 26.02% of your sales need to be at the full $3 profit margin. All right. For sales with $3 profit, net profit for 100 sales with $3 profit, loss per return rate of 2%, the net profit would be $290. For the sales with a $1 loss, net loss would be $102. Required percentage for profit, it ends up balancing out. But essentially 26.02% of them need to be at the full $3 profit margin to win. So I found that really interesting.
Yeah, it is.
All right. Last question here. I'm on a listing with 2 other sellers, products selling 300 plus times a month, but I don't seem to get the buy box. I've matched the buy box and have good seller reviews. Any ideas? They might be a whole lot deeper than you. That might be the only thing. And if they have a lot more inventory than you have, then their inventory may be spread out further than yours, which means they're getting more opportunities to get the buy box. That could be the only thing. You're either going to need to beat them on price enough where Amazon gives you a buy box, or you're going to have to be patient and Amazon will probably rotate you in eventually. But depth of inventory on some things can give people a bit of a leg up, not just due to being deep on the product, just the fact that it's spread wider and Amazon wants speed to the customer more than anything else. And so, if someone in New York is buying in California and Texas, they've got inventory closer to those people. Maybe all your inventory is in Florida, but maybe it's a toboggan and we're just not buying toboggans right now. So,
yeah. Speaking of that, I did see on a product detail page, Amazon actually explained, they had a little box explaining that the price was higher, but it would be delivered to me quicker.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. So Chris, I bought some shoes from a drug dealer. All right. I'm not sure what they were laced with, but I've been tripping all day.
That's solid.
All right, guys. We're gonna call it there. I hope this was helpful. We'll be back on Sunday at 3 p.m. in the afternoon to do this all over again. A little bit different format on Sunday, but we'd love to have you back at 3 p.m. on Sunday to chat with us again. Hope you guys have a great night, and until next time.